Okay, friends, welcome back to our online Bible study in the Gospel of John. And today we are starting the last chapter of John, which is hard to believe. In this last chapter, it's kind of like an epilogue. I said last week that if you get to the end of John chapter 20, it's a perfectly good ending to the chapter or the Gospel of John. It feels like that's the end. But then you get chapter 21. Chapter 21 likely wasn't in the first copy of John. It was likely added later. We think that for a couple of reasons. One, again, the end of chapter 20 is just a really great ending. Two, 21 has kind of a different flair to it. It has kind of a different feel. Now, when you get to the very end, it begins to feel like John again. But especially the beginning of it, it doesn't feel like the rest of John. And in fact, I think John chapter 21 is tied very, very closely to Luke chapter 5. I say I think that like it's some like big revelation. Like I'm the only one. No, lots of people think that. But it's one of the reasons that I think John 21 is kind of rightly viewed as an epilogue to the Gospel of John. And if it is the greatest epilogue ever written. John chapter 21 is staggering in how great it is. So I'm going to trust that you've read it. If you haven't read it, go back and read it. But what happens in John chapter 21 is that Peter and some of the other disciples are back up on the Sea of Galilee. They've left Jerusalem. They're on the Sea of Galilee. Likely on the north shore, there's a spot right there called Tuggle where 7 springs of water flow into the Sea of Galilee. It's a popular fishing spot then. And for years, that's been the spot that people think that John 21 happened. I keep a picture of myself at Tuggle on my desk at church. It's a wonderful, wonderful spot on the north shore of the Sea of Galilee. Likely that's where this happened. Tomorrow we're going to talk more about what happens in John chapter 21, but what I want you to see today is I want you to see how this is tied in with something that happened way before this. Something that happened 3 years before this, not recorded in the Gospel of John, but is recorded in the Gospel of Luke. And it's one of my favorite stories in the whole Bible. Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. It's where Jesus is on the Sea of Galilee, on the shoreline, and he's teaching, and so many people have gathered around him that he needs a pulpit, he needs a platform. So he gets in this fisherman, Simon, who later his name is changed to Peter. He gets in Simon Peter's boat, and they push out from the shore. Jesus then says to Simon after he's done teaching, go out into the deeper waters and let down your nets for a catch, which seems crazy to Simon Peter because he's been fishing all night and he's caught nothing. But he goes out, throws his nets down, catches a huge catch. After that, he is just overwhelmed by what has just happened. He spent his whole life trying to catch a whole bunch of fish, hadn't been able to. Not like this. Jesus gets in his boat, happens like that. He recognizes there's something special about this guy. I don't deserve to be in his presence. And he falls down on his knees. He says, I'm a sinful man. I don't know what is going on with you, but I don't even deserve to be around you. Jesus says, guess what? From now on, you're not going to be a fisherman. You're going to be a fisher of men. You're going to be a fisher of people. Your dream for your life has been too small. Come with me. We're going to do some pretty amazing stuff. Peter, Andrew, his brother, James and John, who are also brothers, who are partners of Peter and Andrew, they go back to the shore. They leave everything and they follow Jesus. It was on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. I think maybe even in the same spot. Maybe Luke 5 happens at Tabgha also. It was on the shores of the Sea of Galilee that these folks started their journey with Jesus. And here at the end of Jesus' earthly ministry, they're back on that north shore. So here's what I want you to reflect on today. Tomorrow we're going to talk about what happens at the end of Jesus' ministry on those shores. But reflect now on the fact that 3 years before this happened, Jesus had grabbed what seemed to be just a random group of folks, plucked them out of obscurity, and said, come and follow me. And think about what has happened in their lives in those 3 years. How God has molded and shaped and formed them and prepared them. And think about the ways in which God has molded and shaped and formed you. Over the last however many years, over the last several months as we've read through the Gospel of John together. Jesus doesn't come into their lives and change their lives in an instant. He comes into their lives and begins that journey. And over 3 years, teaches them, helps them to know what he knows, models for them helps them to do what he does. And in time, they become more and more like Jesus. How has God slowly worked in your life to draw you closer to him? And we'll look at tomorrow is 3 years after that initial call, what these disciples are up to. So do a little bit of reflection on what might have happened in their lives the last 3 years and how God is slowly making changes in yours. God bless you, friends. Tomorrow, I'm going to be back with you, and we're going to talk about that North Shore and what happens in John chapter 21 again. God bless you. I'll see you next time.